Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to the FutureSox podcast, part of the Just Baseball Media Network. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me, as always, Mr. James Fox. Tonight, we will be getting into the status of the White Sox rebuild with Geoff Pontes from Baseball America. Let me go ahead and bring him in. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Pretty good, guys. How's it going?
Not too bad. So you just recently had a podcast where you went through and talked about the White Sox rebuild. So we kind of wanted to get into some of that stuff with you tonight. And I guess we could just start things off like one of the top guys that you talked about glowingly, sort of, would be Caleb Bonemer. And he had a really interesting season this year. As you guys mentioned, he did have a little bit of a downtime in June, and I know that he was dealing with like a, a reoccurring hip injury that kind of slowed him down a little bit in other spots. But what do you think? I mean, you think that he has the highest ceiling in the White Sox system currently?
Yeah, I do. I think particularly among the position players, because like ceiling conversations with some of their pitchers, I actually think are really interesting. Because I think you can go a variety of different directions. There's some really interesting arms near the top of the system. A couple guys who had, I don't know if I would fully say like down years as much as like bumpy years might be a better way to kind of describe it. But I think when you look at position players, even historically, they haven't done real well with high school like position players in the draft, probably since like Tim Anderson, I think was the guy that had like any like true major league impact kind of within that bucket of archetype. So I think you look at Bonnemer and number one, certainly succeeded in low A. And I think we can have some conversations about the quality of play in low A, but I think there's also something to be said for posting really good offensive numbers in the Carolina League, which just, if you look at those slash lines and sort of the jumps you see from guys who turn out to be really good prospects or really good major league hitters like Rowan Anthony, look at some of these slash lines of these guys. It's a lot of parks that kind of suppress power. So I think you have to keep that in mind. He hit for power. All the underlying stuff is really, really good. Just from the perspective of like bats a ball ability, in zone, like swing decisions, there's a good balance of not only like aggression in the zone, but also like, discerning balls from strikes and kind of keeping a tight zone in terms of where the swings are. Pretty good angles overall, makes a lot of barrel contact. And I think you kind of look at the body type, you look at the athlete, you even sort of look at the defensive profile of like maybe a bigger bodied shortstop with a good arm who could potentially move over to third. I think it's a lot like Gunnar Henderson. And even like where the data tracks, like maybe the hit tool's a little bit better, maybe a little bit less like high end power. But like their pre-draft athletic testing, from the same people that did the same testing through the same exact algorithm and system, spit out the same grade at the same height and the same weight at 18 years old. So I think there's like some precedent there as well that like, all right, it's like very similar sort of like chassis and engine in there. And there's some really good just like baseball ability. So we saw this. He got hit an uneven um, platform summer a little bit where like there were some really high highs. Like I remember him going crazy at like PG National and then some other tournaments where like he was a little off. But overall throughout the season, he looked really good. I know that one down month, I think it was June or whatever. Was he also dealing with like pneumonia? Somebody had told me
I
that
think
he
that
was
was Wolco.
playing through something. Okay. I I knew that there was like some injury that he was kind of nagging. I didn't think it was like an illness, but someone had messaged me after the podcast and said that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it kind of swept through the entire clubhouse, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had gotten it. Um, I mean, it seemed like most of the guys had like a couple of days where they disappeared for a few days, so that wouldn't surprise me at all. But I didn't hear about it personally. Um,
Jeff,
so I had a
oh, sorry.
go ahead,
How much
James.
of a surprise was it I guess just for you, what did you think pre-draft? Because he was very controversial. Like people with the Sox love him, and they had him on their area codes team, and they gave him $3 million right after, and he was like just in the draft prospect space, like kind of a controversial guy. And then he goes right to low A, something that we're not used to, right? Because we're not used to the White Sox succeeding, like developing high school kids, right? And this new, it's like, oh my God, he's going right to low A, and then he was fine, right? There was like nothing to worry about, but the whole thing was kind of interesting.
Yeah, which would probably be a very normal progression for like a top 2 to 3 round high school prospect that gets that kind of money. Like more often than not, those guys like, it years ago when there were still complex leagues, they might go to the complex league. But the next year you would expect like Aiden Miller or somebody like that, got similar money to probably start at low A, right? But like you said, like historically, the White Sox haven't necessarily done so well in that space. So um I wouldn't say I was shocked because there were a lot of smart people on the amateur space that I talked to kind of behind the scenes that really like Bonemer. Kind of coming into that summer, I had some friends that were, very plugged in, particularly in like the Michigan Midwest area in terms of their best prospects and spoke very highly of him. And analysts were kind of split. Those that kind of balanced that athletic testing that I was talking about tended to like Bonham a little bit more. Those that were kind of just looking more at like power with the blend of like plate skills. As I said, he had that uneven platform summer, and I think like that's what made him kind of divisive. Is like, does he have like he's a cold weather guy? Doesn't necessarily have like the big national track record that some of these other guys do, maybe with like USA Baseball, etc. But in the end, I mean, I think more often than not, the high school guys, particularly on the hitting side, are probably your best gambles, especially if they're guys that are going to get $1 million, right? Like, no matter where they fall on the board, you could be Ryan Clifford and get $1 million, whatever he got in like round 11. Um, those guys are typically the ones that have upside. I mean, it's why they have the price tags that they do. And they usually have some tools. And I think getting them into pro development, if you believe in your development, which could still be a question on the hitting side with the White Sox, frankly. I still think those are the guys that hit. Like, give me that over the high floor college, corner guy. Like, sure, like the numbers maybe pop on like the model or whatever, but how much does that translate? Like we're seeing it with James Tibbs. He's on his third team, like was a first round pick, and he was kind of like the perfect example of one of those kind of guys. So I think it was a good pick. And I think ultimately right now it looks like a great pick.
I just had one more quick question before we moved on here. So I know that the White Sox had him playing some third base later on in the year. Your thoughts on whether you think that he's going to stick at shortstop or move over to third?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to probably depend on, who's on the major league roster at that point. There's no reason for them not to give him multi-positional experience. Right now, that's of a ton of value, and I think teams are doing more and more of that. Even if they view you as the long-term answer at shortstop, you might get some games, especially if there's somebody decent, in the infield on your team that can play some short. Those guys will get some second base work. They'll get some third base work. You'll even see some of those guys go out to center field. Like I think Connor Griffin, for example, is probably a no doubt shortstop, but played a bunch of center field this year. So, I think just having that multi-position eligibility is probably wise. And if he ends up there or not is really just going to depend on like the structure of the team. But I think like the athlete is there and the skills are there. Now, is he ever going to be like a 60 shortstop? Probably not. But I think could be passable. And I think we even saw with like Montgomery this year, like sometimes guys look a certain way in a vacuum and then, they make some tweaks and, adjustments in terms of like actions and timing and stuff like that set up and can make some big gains in the field.
So there's another guy in the system who is another one of the top ranked prospects, depending, one or two, depending on which publication you're looking at. Braden Montgomery, he also kind of had like an interesting season where he had like ebbs and flows, and I guess that's to be expected from somebody in their first pro season. What were your thoughts on Braden Montgomery, and what do you see him as in the future?
Yeah, I think a power hitting, kind of high strikeout corner outfielder with an 80 arm. Like he fits that, like he's that prototype, right? Like he kind of fits neatly into that box. Um, it's just unusual because there aren't a lot of switch hitters that are like high whiff guys. But he is. I mean, he misses in zone. I think his zone whiff this year in zone at least was like 22, 23%. He'll chase a little bit, but it's not too bad. The swing decisions are actually overall plus. But you're looking for quality of contact here. He hits the heck out of the ball. Like I said, as a rocket arm out there and in a corner outfield spot. I wouldn't have him playing center long term. I don't think he's like that kind of an athlete. But the kind of prototypical corner outfielder that hits for power, has a plus arm or better. His is probably, like I said, probably an 80 out there. So yeah, there's some value to that. He's probably like a perfect number 5, number 6 hitter. And you're going to see a guy with like a 28 to like 31, 32% strikeout rate probably early. But a walk to offset that a little bit. And there's a chance for like 30 pumps. And I mean, how many switch hitters can hit 30 home runs nowadays? Like very few.
Yes, and then sticking on the position player side, they go back to the high school well this year. I was pretty excited with their first 2 draft picks, Billy Carlson, Jaden Fauske. You guys kind of mentioned those guys on the podcast episode that you did. They're very likely going to low A as well. I guess, what are your thoughts on those guys, and then just like the strategy of doubling up with 2 prep guys?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke earlier about I think that's where the upside is. And they're both kind of in line with the Bonemer conversation in terms of like they're divisive in certain circles. Um, there's no question about the athlete that you're getting with Billy Carlson. There's no questions around the glove. I mean, this is I think a no doubt shortstop, whether he plays a bunch of different positions in the infield, fine. But he's probably going to stick there. The arm is there. I mean, he was a decent pitching prospect as well. Not really like what he was as a shortstop. The question is like, can he hit? And I don't know. I think there is more power projection there than people realize. The swing itself needs to be fixed a little bit. Um, Depending upon who he works with and what direction he goes with that, be interesting. I think if you're playing like the 75th percentile outcome, like a somewhat likely outcome that's somewhat optimistic, it's Mason Wynn. And that's pretty good, right? A guy that could hit at the top of the order on his good years, is at least a productive at bat, day in and day out, as an outstanding defensive player, and obviously there's a ton of value in that, and it could probably be like a 3 WAR guy. Um, if the bat takes a big step forward, and I'll say in terms of there's nobody in this class that's going to be Connor Griffin. But if we're talking about someone who's his athletic equal that had upside and pedigree, it's probably Carlson. He's just not nearly as big as Connor Griffin is. Like I'm whatever, 6 feet, 220 pounds. I took a picture next to Connor Griffin and I look like I'm 5'5", like he's a huge guy. So I think there's obviously going to be more power there, etc. But the hit tool gets cleaned up. I mean, he's going to have speed. He does have explosiveness. There's a ton of upside here. I just don't know if he'll ever get the swing and all that sort of ironed out to the point that it's like, all right, this is an above average, a 55 or a 60 bat with 55 power. It might be more like a 50 bat with 40 power, good speed, and 60 or 70 defense out there, at shortstop, which is a really valuable player and, a guy that could have a long major league career. Fauski's another one where, depending upon who you talk to, some people really, really believe in the bat and other people think that he's no good. He's not the best athlete, but there's definitely hit and power there. And I think that's what people are kind of hanging on to is like, all right, there could be like, legitimate like hit power combination here that carries that profile. And those guys sometimes work out. I think he's very interesting. I mean, it's among sort of the prep hitting or positional player combos that teams got in the draft. This is, in terms of just following it for the next 3 years, this is probably as interesting as a combo as anybody, came out of the 2025 draft with. Just from a perspective of like the storyline of like, all right, do all these things kind of work out? And if so, you could have, 2 average or above average everyday regulars, which I think is pretty exciting.
I'd sign up for that. Keeping on the position player side, is there anybody else in the system that kind of stands out to you that you think could make a real push this year?
Oh, I think that's probably a trickier question because I don't necessarily cover the system year round. So, the guys that I have touch points on tend to be in like AAA because that's the only affiliate that I would see in person. Or when I'm tuning into the pitchers, I'm way more excited about the pitching side of things with this team.
We do have a question in the chat. They were asking about is there any hope for Jacob Gonzalez?
um, oof. Probably not. I really didn't like that pick. At the time that it was made. I mean, there's decent plate skills, but I don't think it's enough to carry him. I don't think he's going to be like an on-base machine at the highest levels, and it's like 40 raw power. It's like sub 102, 90th percentile. Didn't have any balls above 110 this year. And it was a pretty, solid sample size. It was like 500 plus plate appearances. So, yeah, I mean, probably not. And I've never been a big believer in the glove. So, yeah, I'm not a Jacob Gonzalez guy.
So
Thoughts
I'm
on
gonna
Sam Antonacci?
That's an interesting conversation. Because you kind of have a player like this in Brooks Baldwin, and then all of a sudden, like Baldwin really like changed who he was a little bit this year. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it can work. Because it's not like it's what, second base defense, and like how valuable is a second baseman that doesn't hit for a ton of power? I mean, it seems like all the underlying traits are there in terms of like the hit tool side of things, and obviously can run a little bit. It, I really struggle with players like Antonacci because like I kind of view him more as like a bench player, fill in kind of role type versus like an everyday regular. But there's certainly a chance that he just keeps hitting and shuts people like me up.
Yeah, totally get it. So you noted that Tanner McDougal and Christian Opper like had impressive seasons. Obviously, I think that the two guys we're going to talk to in a minute get more fanfare, but I would generally agree. Like 2 really good seasons. Those guys have really good stuff. How close do you think those guys are to being considered on like like top 100 lists at places?
I'll have McDougal on my top 100 list, 100%. And I think there's like maybe a chance to like offer somewhere in that like 90 to 100, 106, like just off the list kind of range. He's definitely in the conversation. And I mean, how many lefties throw that hard? And I think you look at McDougal's overall season, quality of the fastball, and some decent secondaries, obviously, as well. It's just a really powerful mix. And I think that can work. And I think, the White Sox have done a pretty good job on the pitching development side. And, I think with the addition of obviously Bannister a few years ago, he knows what he's doing. And certainly there's something, going on behind the scenes that I think is working. And that's one of the reasons I definitely believe in both of those guys. So yeah, I think they're both top 100 worthy.
So you had 2 left-handed pitchers. Ooh, that's coming in hot. 2 left-handed pitchers that were ranked in the top left-handed pitching of all of Major League Baseball coming into the year last year. What do you need to see from Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith to feel about them going into the long term?
Yeah, I think with Schultz, some of it's just the pitchability side of things, and I think it as negative as people necessarily want to be about 2025, this was like the first season in his life where he just went like 5 innings. Like we never saw that previously as a pro. He didn't do that in high school. It was like 3 to 4 inning outings, and he was just kind of protected. So he had to see that second time through the order. That's not even necessarily where he struggled. I think if you watched a lot of those games too, there was bad defense behind him, had some bad batted ball luck just in terms of like bloops and stuff like that was dropping. And then he kind of started to pitch a little bit differently and seemed like he was almost pitching scared and didn't want to throw to the outer parts of the plate or back up the slider or throw a backdoor to a right-handed hitter. Like some of the stuff that he does really well, he almost stayed away from. And I felt like at that point in time, and I'd have to look at the numbers here, but I felt like he would start to throw the cutter more when he was starting to struggle, and then that pitch would just start to get like nailed. So I think the ingredients are still there. I think the ceiling conversation that people were having, like us internally included, like my colleague, and I mean, I love JJ Cooper, one of my favorite people on earth, but like he was throwing out that like Randy Johnson comp, and I was like on the podcast with him, like kind of like cringing a little bit because it's like that, like I can see it, but that is just such a lofty comp to put on anybody. And I know that it took a little bit for that to click, but that's like one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But it's funky and it's good stuff. And he's still really, really young and has high level experience. And I think there's still a chance that like you could see him in the big leagues next year. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him in April or May in the big leagues. It kind of depends if he can just kind of get that arsenal to all work together. But I still think there's upside there. I'm not as negative on him as some other people are, but I kind of had more tempered expectations coming into the season as well, looking at the fact that this was a guy that was still really young and had never gone deep into games. And, I think innings tell you a lot about whether a guy's going to be able to start or not. It's what's valuable about drafting college starters. Because more often than not, those guys actually have to compete in near big league level environments, particularly in like the SEC and some of the bigger conferences. You just don't see that in the minor leagues. You don't see that at, PG events or most high schools outside of like Texas or like the CIF or whatever. Maybe some of the high schools in Illinois. They're a pretty big deal, right?
A
Not around here in
few.
Massachusetts. Nobody's going to high school baseball games in Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, we can't for probably the first month of the season anyway because it's too stinking cold. Um,
Same.
yeah, I think kind of like one of the things for White Sox fans especially is as far as Noah and Hagen go is that we just want them to get some innings in and be healthy. I mean, you saw with Hagen. With Hagen, you saw that he was running into some shoulder issues because he changed his mechanics a little bit. He got off kilter a little bit, and then you had knee tendonitis with Noah. So you know, obviously that's probably going to impact their numbers, and obviously that's going to contribute to that. So I mean, I think that's mostly what everybody wants to see. Um,
Well, and so I think with Hagen, and obviously Hagen's like a very controversial topic, like for us, Jeff, just because we were both, like what you passed on to take Hagen Smith to me, right? It's like this dude's got to be awesome. Like and people push back a lot, like, oh, it's his first season, and I'm like, no, like this is an SEC pitcher, quick to the like this. You passed on Connor Griffin, like this has to be awesome, type of thing, and he bounced back at the end, and he looked more like his old self, but. I mean, it was rough and rocky. I mean, he's throwing 94 in season and walking a bunch of dudes, and you're having fears that I think there's still relief risk. So, but I do feel better than I did maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, and I think the questions about like a third pitch kind of plagued him coming into the draft, but it was like, all right, like it's such a unique fastball, it's low launch from, a weird left-handed slot and had more velocity obviously than he showed as a professional when he was in the SEC. And it was like, oh, it's a 70 slider too. All right, like that can work. We've seen that roadmap work. And I think, the weird lefty with good angles and 2+ or better pitches. Okay, like you can get by with like a 40 changeup that you don't throw all that much, or maybe there's something that's like a bridge pitch, a cutter, whatever that we can teach you. But the fact that the fastball backed up and then the command backed up so much, it was really concerning. Now, the reports that we were getting from outside the organization, like scouts and AFL, were actually really, really good. So you can take some solace in that. But yeah, I think it's always going to, even if he's a good, number 3, it's still going to sting a little bit that you passed on Connor Griffin. I think it's going to sting anybody that throughout that draft that they didn't take Connor Griffin. Maybe the Athletics with Nick Kurtz, but that might be the only exception. And I'm not even sure that will be the case in like 5 years.
Another thing, so you and JJ touched on it a little bit in the episode, obviously. Just thoughts on, whatever you want to call the White Sox current young core. I don't know that they have any superstars, right? But I think it was a little fun for White Sox fans that like something mattered last year after 2 years ago when nothing mattered, right? You see kind of Colson come back to life a little bit and the young catchers and just some of the guys in the big leagues. What are your, I guess, just quick thoughts on some of the guys that they have in the big leagues currently?
Yeah, I think there's some value to what they did last season in terms of like letting a lot of guys from inside the organization that are still pretty young get some run. Obviously, some of those guys were acquired, but Mydroth and Teal, Montgomery, as you mentioned, Miguel Vargas took a pretty big step forward. Cuero, another guy that they had acquired. But I think overall, kind of taking some shots on some players too. Like, I don't think Curtis Mead turns into anything or Everson Pereira, but giving those guys a shot as well and seeing if like maybe this is like a different environment where things can kind of click. That's what the Orioles did right before their big core of prospects came up. I don't know if the White Sox have totally assembled that so far, but I think they have a pretty good start. It's just a matter of, do you have that core guy that is a future, 5 WAR kind of guy? Maybe Bonnemer's that. I'm not necessarily going to bet on that. But if that comes to fruition, I think that at least there's some pieces here. Like we were doing the same series and we looked at the Pirates. Obviously, their pitching is really, really good. But you go on the position side outside of Connor Griffin, and I guess O'Neill Cruz to an extent. It's kind of ugly. And the Rockies was like really ugly. So you go through, the Nationals position players are good, pitching wasn't as good, but you go through some of the players in this team and you kind of feel like, all right, like if a few things go well, they could get to 80+ wins in a couple of years. That's not such, an unbelievable thing to think, but it's still a long ways away. But I think at least there was, like, as you said, some improvement. And though they were the worst team ever, I don't think they were actually as bad as the Rockies were last year. That might actually be the worst team ever. That team is terrible.
Yeah, that whole 2024 season was that was something. I genuinely I still fail to comprehend how that actually happened. I mean, losing 121 games is ridiculous. I still can't even fathom that. Um, so the draft is coming up soon. The draft lottery is coming up next week. How important is it for the White Sox to get one of the top picks in that draft?
Well, I mean, that kind of harkens back to the conversation I just mentioned because, I think if you do get the number 1 pick in this draft, with Rock and Jarowski there, like obviously like that's like a legitimate 1-1 overall, impact kind of player. Just in terms of how he's viewed, one of the best college players probably since Adley Rushman. Impact on both sides of the ball, plus hit tool. There's power there as well. And a guy that wants to win, and I think kind of brings that mentality as well. So if they do get one, I think that looks pretty good for them as long as Rock has a good season with UCLA this year.
Crossing our fingers.
Yeah,
We've
man.
been bit by that one once already.
Well, last year was easy because like last year you knew where they were picking. Like they were picking at 10, right? So then when
Yeah.
it's 5 and you're supposed to be like 2 or 3, it's kind of rough, you know. So whatever. We'll have a live show, Jeff, and either like freak out or be really happy. So we'll see.
I mean, it's a good draft. It's certainly better than having, a top 5 pick last year where I think like we could see a guy go in the 20s or in the second round and turn out to be the best player in last year's draft. It's like one of those kind of years where there's like a legitimate, 1-1 and Chalowski is legit.
Yep, they don't usually make it to college, right? So like
Yeah.
the guys like rock. So hey, thanks for your time tonight. Where can you let everybody know just where they can find you? I know you're all over the place at Baseball America now.
Yeah, you can find me Twitter, Blue Sky, same handle, Geoff Pontes, BA. It's GEOFF. And we're rolling out top 10 lists. All the top 10 lists are in. So we're finishing off the AL. We started AL East, so we still got the Central. I think that should roll out sometime this week. I don't know if the White Sox list will be out like late this week or early next. I got to look at what the schedule is, but we'll
I
be
think it's
running
the
all
8th.
those. Okay, well there you go. You know it
Yeah.
better than I do.
Yeah. I
Look
looked
good for
I
me.
looked yesterday, yeah, to see.
And we're finishing up top 30s. The handbook will be in like less than a month. So that's exciting. And then we've got some chance to take a little breather for a few weeks, and then baseball will start back up again in February as it always does. So, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of stuff going on with the winter meetings, Rule 5 draft, or wall to wall with coverage on that as well. So yeah, stay tuned.
Do you have to scramble like if it's your team like right now like this time of year if there's like a trade with Jim Callis always talks about that with us like just oh god like this team made a trade and they traded 3 guys and then he's got to shift 3 guys in. How many lists do you have?
I have 4.
Okay.
So I have Jays, Astros, Cardinals, and then Cubs actually. There are certain systems where like the Cardinals keep on taking on prospects, so that's kind of fun to cover right now because that might be the best system or one of the top 3 or 4 systems right now. Um, Astros, I just hope they don't trade any prospects because there's only so many. And it's honestly like the back end of that Cubs list is insane. Like the top 10 is pretty good. And there's some guys up to like 15, 16, and then it gets real hairy. And like some of the guys that I'm ranking 25 to 30 for the Cubs are pretty rough. Blue Jays, I follow that system more than probably any other system that I cover. And that system is fine. Like the top is really good, probably better than it's been in a few years. And they always kind of have like some sneaky bats, like these Davis Schneider guys that they pay nothing for and then turn to like decent minor league players that, like 40 grade guys. But yeah, some of the systems, it depends. The Astros, the Cubs, they make a trade. I'm definitely scrambling trying to find like somebody with a pulse that is worth being on a top 30 list.
No doubt. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Jeff. Don't want to eat up your entire night here. We appreciate you coming on. Appreciate all the work that you do over at BA, and hope to catch up with you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too, man.
All right. Well, that was fun. So any overall thoughts here, James, on some of the things that he said?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's like a super interesting system, obviously. I think the issue is once you get like right in that 9 or 10 range, I think there's lots of questions, right, with the White Sox system right now. They really need another draft and they need multiple international periods to like keep rolling here, especially because like I think, we've kind of talked about this where there's like 5 or 6 guys who I think are pretty close to the majors, right? Like the 3 pitchers, including Tanner, and then Antonacci and Montgomery are all going to be like in the big leagues, I think, pretty soon this year, right? And then look, if Bonemer really takes off and Billy Carlson is more of like what I think he is than what some others do, I mean, you're going to have 2 premium like shortstop prospects that are like, in maybe the top 50 in all of baseball. And adding like a Rock Chalowski to that would be great. So I think that's the thing where, the system could really take off again. But the depth, I think, is probably lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I can agree with that 100%. I mean, could you imagine if the White Sox went from having like no middle infield talent to speak of, and now we've got a bunch of homegrown stuff infused with guys that we got in trades and the guys that we got with drafts, and now all of a sudden we're wondering where they're all going to play. So I think that that's a pretty fantastic dilemma to be in for once.
Yeah, and there's like just interesting stuff as far as like they're not all prospects, like all the guys that are coming back, right? But even like, like Blake Larson could pop this year, similarly to how Christian Opper did. I mean, you just heard from Geoff, like Geoff isn't the only one that is gonna have. I mean, Christian Opper goes to AA and does what he did last year. Like that dude's gonna be like a top 100 prospect. I mean, like you saw him in person, like he throws really hard, like from the left side.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I think it's like easy to ignore when it's done in Kannapolis, right? But as you do it in high A and double, like those guys get on the radar. It's just premium stuff. Him and Tanner. You got two guys behind the two guys that everybody talks about. Like I think that's pretty cool. And then the fact that you can just keep adding like young position players. Because like, look, I like Billy Carlson or Jaden Fauske could make the same ascent that Caleb. Look, I don't think either of us expected this out of Caleb Bonemer. Like I
No,
just,
not this soon anyway.
I thought it was definitely third, and I didn't know if it was enough power for third. And now it might be shortstop and enough power for anywhere. Like, it's just this is what it looks like, right? So which is Geoff kind of mentioned this, like the low impact, like safe college guy. Like I'm totally on board with $3 million for, Caleb Bonemer and Jaden Fauske types over like $2 million for the Steel Walkers of the world. Like I just like hope those days are over with that like safe type drafting where it just like doesn't really get you anything.
Speaking of, I had to bait him with that Jacob Gonzalez question. I I just wanted to know what he was gonna say. I had to know.
Yeah, dude, it's so like, and like what could have been, right? Like in that class, like it could have been like an all-time draft class because you have Grant Taylor in that class. But you also have Wolko, Opper, and um Matthias Lacombe. So if like that first rounder is any of the high school, like Colt, if you take Colt Emerson in the first round, I mean it's like an all-time draft class, but you have like the Jacob Gonzalez pick instead. So yeah, it's kind of rough.
I think that was just like a panic pick.
It was a Jeremy Haber, like, let's take this college guy that's safe pick that'll sign for cheap. But I mean, I feel like because even like that day, like when I did the live show for that pick, I mean, I don't know, man. Like I was convinced they were taking a high school guy based off like all the intel I had. They really wanted I told you they wanted Blake Mitchell, and then Kansas City took him at 8, but I still thought it was going to be Namala or one of these other guys, and then when it was Jacob Gonzalez, I wasn't totally shocked because Callis had him taking Gonzalez. But yeah, I also like didn't hate it that much at the time because I just thought he was going to be better than this, but he's not.
Yeah, it just has not worked out, unfortunately. Just the consistency has never been there. I mean, the glove's been surprisingly, like the thing that people said is, oh, he's really slow and like his glove's not that good. He's actually been pretty stinking good in the field. He just, the hit tool that was pretty good at Ole Miss has just never panned out in the minor jet.
It's still a funky swing, and he's just not an athlete, I think is the biggest thing. Like he's just not.
That is also
like he's
something.
So he's at Charlotte, right? I mean, he's not on the 40 man. It's not like you have to worry about him. But I mean, it doesn't really seem like he's going to be a priority. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be playing middle infield in Charlotte this year. You're going to have other guys there too, right? You have Tanner Murray, and you have like all these other guys that are probably going to be there too.
Yeah, be interesting to see what happens with playing time, and where guys get shipped, because it's not like he's exactly bowling people over with the numbers he's put up yet.
Yeah, and I am
interested. Different front office.
For sure. Yeah, so I don't really know. I mean, the other thing he said, the Tanner thing that I think is interesting, you know how this goes. Like you've been, I guess, doing this and paying attention to this sort of thing long enough. Like as soon as he's on like one top 100 list, he's going to be on for like everybody. So if Geoff has enough, sway over there, or like there's like 3 or 4 other guys who also like him that much, and Tanner McDougal's like, like the 88th ranked prospect in baseball or something, he's going to be on other lists too. And then that'll be like a bigger pitching debut than maybe we would have thought otherwise, right? Like, look, like you and I are going to be excited when Tanner McDougal makes his big league debut. Like, that's going to be awesome, right? But if he's like the 71st ranked prospect in baseball when he makes it, like a lot of other people will be excited about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting, it was kind of just one of those things where I saw that all the pieces were there
Mhm.
for him to do what he did last year. But he just, didn't put it all together in one start. Nevertheless, an entire season. So, you would see it an inning here, an inning there, a couple of innings together, maybe, but then there would be like a blow up inning somewhere. And this year, it's just, for the most part, there was very few blow up innings and everything was strung together pretty stinking well. So, and Opper, I mean, he's going to pop onto some top 100 lists as well. I mean, left-handed pitcher hitting 102 with, you know, really nasty changeup, and the breaking pitches are good too.
Yeah, and he's like 21 years old.
And he's really young. Yeah.
Yeah. So pull this. So Matthias Lacombe, Kevin asked a question like just, Lacombe can make a solid impact on the major league club, question mark. So I'm guessing that that's obviously like him asking. So here's the thing. Like, I think Matthias Lacombe is really interesting. And we've talked about this on different episodes. I'm just curious to see what they do with him because, like, look, I think he can start, but I don't know if it's going to be worth it to them to have him start because it's going to take a while, right? And he's already like 23, I think. I do think he's the type where if they decide to just throw him in a bullpen and let him fire it, like he could be awesome. Now I understand like we've basically said do the opposite with Grant Taylor, right? But they can't all start. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle Lacombe because I do think he could kind of fast track in a relief role. I just don't know what their plan is with him.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I mean, just I've only seen a very, very small sample size of Lacombe. So I don't want to, make any broad sweeping, assessments of what he can and can't do with the very limited size that I've seen so far. You know, want to see him get some more innings in next year and see what comes of it.
Yeah, and I think we'll be able to tell by like where they send him because I mean, if he goes to Winston in a starting role, yeah, Uncle Ted's kind of going off tonight, man.
Yeah, well,
Let me
I
tell you.
mean, like Mitch Keller. I mean, I've said before, I am a Mitch Keller enjoyer as well. And Joe Ryan's pretty good as well. But I mean, realistically, you're saying get rid of all these prospects that are pretty high ceiling guys for guys that you already have seen what they do at the major league level. I mean, it's possible that we could maybe get a little bit more out of them, but I mean, I don't know. To me, that's a
Yeah.
little harsh, I think.
Well, it's just not tight. Like here, for as much as like we're like prospect humpers or whatever, like that's whatever. I can't wait till this team wins and they're trading prospects. Like that's gonna be awesome. It's really not time though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a little too early to move on with that stuff. Um, do you have any more thoughts on this minor stuff before we get to like the happenings in Major League Baseball here?
No, I'm just like we came across the episode. I'm glad that they did it. They were interested. It was interesting. I always think JJ Cooper is like really interesting because he's been doing this a long time, and they didn't really talk about the Schultz like injury as much. Like I don't know. Like I feel like I'm just like not that worried about Noah Schultz right now. Like
Yeah.
as soon as like I was a little bit, but then like as soon as like we found out about the knee injury, I was like, oh okay, that like answers a lot of the questions for me.
Yeah, it all makes sense. It all makes sense at that point. Like I had my suspicions that there was something going on, and then we kind of got confirmation of it, and then a couple months later, everybody's like, "Oh, he's got tendonitis." Well, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's kind of with me on it. Like I really struggle with Antonacci. And I know like our counterparts on our other podcast are like telling me I'm like nuts. I don't know. Like I don't know I don't know how much impact it is. He's
Yeah,
super
is the
fun and it's
ceiling
like
high enough? I don't know.
like yeah, he's going to play in the big leagues. Like
He's
100%,
he is a gamer. That is
Yeah.
not there's no doubt about that, but is the impact going to be there enough for him to start over somebody else? That's the
Yeah.
question, right?
Yeah, I mean he's lefty and he's like my drothy. Like they're similar. So can you have both? I don't know, but here's the thing, we're going to see him and look, maybe he like turns into Ben Zobrist and we're all crazy, right? But let's find out.
See, Grimtall has blown in from the north winds onto Twitch. Good to see you, my friend.
Baseball,
anyway.
I'll do it towards the end. I'll talk Lane Kiffin at the very end. Remind me.
Yeah, that whole thing. And also, speaking of things that baseball brought up, is that Bubby Hoopy Tuiyonotoa has re-signed with the Rangers after being released by the White Sox. Looks like he's finally ready to start throwing again and playing some competitive baseball. I don't know what affliction occurred with him that whether it was family health related or what happened, but he just kind of disappeared, and now he's back.
Yeah,
So
that whole thing was kind of weird.
yeah, baseball, I would probably be just as sad as you if his results had been better at the time. It's just like from what I saw with him with the Rangers to what I saw with him with the Sox was pretty different results and different pitchers. And that's coming from a guy pitching in the PCL, maybe? Did he make it to the PCL? No, he's in Texas League. But I mean, even still, I don't have an answer for you. The question is Drew Thorpe going to be not terrible this year or what? We'll see. I mean, he's coming back from TJ, and this is a couple of the guys that are coming back from TJ are heavy on their changeup usage, and that is a very tough pitch to get your feel back after TJ. So we'll see, how quickly they progress and how quickly they get back on the mound. It's a big question.
Yeah, it's like with all these guys, right? And I mean, nobody brought it up, but I mean, like Kai Busch coming back too is a guy who nobody really talks about because he's like 26 or whatever, right? But I mean, Kai Busch comes back like, and he has like the thing happen to him where like he like increases velo, and you can just like put him right in a bullpen too, and he's a fastball slider guy that throws like high 90s from the left side. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We got a lot of guys coming back.
Yeah, there are so many. And I'd say 120 innings is probably pretty aggressive. I'd say it's probably less than 100, I would think, for Thorpe.
Oh, yeah. Like, if he doesn't pitch till July, oh, yeah, I think it's a lot less than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's throwing off of a mound, I think. So is Mason Adams. So
yeah, and Mason Adams, are we allowed to talk about that or no? Isn't he like working out somewhere?
Yeah, he's at Cressy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty big for me, and that's where Tanner McDougal went and got his workout program, and
McDougal's back there again, by the way, too. So
well, apparently he just does like the week after the season, he goes to Cressy and gets his workout set in, gets his baseline set for what he's supposed to work on, and then I think that's it. And he just does his work from home and then like telecommutes or whatever. But is Grant Taylor you savage?
Well,
I don't think so.
I mean, like if they started him, like could he have that kind of impact? Maybe. I mean, I don't think Trey Savage is as good as like he looked in the playoffs, but like, yeah, I mean, that's a first round pick arm, like from like a major program.
All right. So you want to move to MLB?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Dylan Cease got his bag.
He did.
7 years, 210 million, 30 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, like it seems about right because teams like overpay for strikeouts. Like he's like if they think they can like fix a couple things. He wasn't great last year. I mean, he's been like a 4.5 ERA guy that doesn't go deep in games. But he makes a ton of starts every year and he strikes out a ton of guys. So, yeah, I mean, if everyone is gonna cost like right around the same money, I guess I understand preferring Cease. I think this is just the price, I guess, for this type of guy now.
Yeah, that's I. For those of you that don't know, he signed with the Blue Jays. Yeah, I when I saw it, I was like, that to me seems like a bit of an overpay, and I get it. He's got swing and miss stuff. Um, I don't think looking at their pitching development, I am not confident in them being able to tweak something that's going to make him that much better. I mean, Trey Savage is kind of like a unicorn for their system because you don't really see them bringing up like very successful starting pitching from their minor system generally. You know, Manoah was good for a little bit, but then
Yeah.
they couldn't fix him.
Yeah, they go trade for it usually, right? I mean, they went and got Gaussman. They went and got
Robbie Ray.
Barrios. Right, exactly. Yeah, they
Uh,
generally sign it in free agency or they go do that. But I mean, their rotation's pretty good, right? I mean, I guess like I never really thought about like so Cease literally, like he hired Scott Boras and he took my guess is the most money. Um it is really
shocker.
it is really early, I mean there were some Cubs rumors. I'm sure other teams liked him. But I mean if he jumped on an offer this quickly, it must just be one of those things where he told Scott, "Hey, like if you can get me 7 at 210 anywhere, like I'll take it basically." And somebody took Toronto's money.
Yeah, I mean that's possible. I mean, it could also be that he was like, well, they were in the World Series last year, so I'll certainly go in there and try and push them over the top. Yeah, I mean they were pretty stinking close. So
And they've had trouble in the past getting people to go there, and I don't know if it's because it's, like, in Canada or what. I mean, supposedly, like, I've never been to Toronto. A lot of people say it's very similar to Chicago.
it's a really nice city, but the problem I'll refrain from any any politicizing of anything. I'll just say the political climate up there and the how it applies to economics is quite different. So there is that.
Do you get killed on taxes in Toronto or no?
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Canada in general, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but and there's, like, deferrals in it too, so I wonder if that's part of the reason why you have deferrals.
So there's also something interesting that as a touring audio engineer, if I had wanted to, when I was on tour, if I had wanted to, I could file taxes for each individual place that I went to
Mhm.
and pay taxes there instead and break it down that way. I mean, it's possible that the players up there do that so they can avoid that, but I
Right.
I would have to talk to a tax attorney. So maybe I'll call, Beefloaf and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Kev, that's a good point. Like, I think he makes all of his starts. I think that's probably, like, what you're paying for. It's strikeouts and durability with him, and they hope that, they get what was that, 2022? A 2022 White Sox season where he was, like, really, really good. He hasn't really been that good since then.
Nope.
So it's got to be what they're hoping for. I'm just fascinated to see like the rest of the pitching deals now, right? Like Framber Valdez, like I like Michael King. Like what does he get? I think significantly less, right? But if he's like 5 at 120 or something, like I'm not going to be terribly surprised by that. I think these, free agent pitching is expensive.
Yeah, for sure. So
Speaking of that, yeah, there's a trade to talk about too. Like
yeah.
because free agent pitching is expensive.
Yes. So Sonny Gray goes from the Cardinals to the Red Sox for Brandon Clark, who had some blister issues and some other stuff, but he was really good when he was around. And then right-handed pitcher Dick Fitz.
Oh yeah. That's what Richard Fitz. That's what Chief
Yes,
said.
Richard Fitz. Yes. Yeah. So Uh, any thoughts on that trade in general?
Yeah, I mean, I like it for Boston. I mean, look, like Brandon Clark's a real prospect, but I mean, like Sonny Gray's good. And St. Louis chipped in money. It does seem like this is the, you know, St. Louis's fire sale is like coming under Heim Bloom. It's something they haven't notoriously done, but it does seem like they're finally going to do it. It's going to be probably a top 5 system when they're all done. And, if JJ Weatherholt is what he looks like and they hit on Liam Doyle and like they could be right back to being the Cardinals again here pretty quickly with like a minor step back. Um, like what they're rumored to be like trading Brendan Donovan, who's young. And there's like you always see all these like Lars Nootbaar and like all these other guys that they have are like basically available, right? Nolan Arenado is going to end up somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I kind of like it for Boston. It does seem like what Craig Breslow doesn't love playing at the top of the free agent pitching market. He'd rather trade for guys. And look, maybe they do sign a guy and Sonny Gray's your number 3 instead of your number 2. But even as your 2 behind Crochet, I think it's probably pretty good.
So Jordan Walker for Benny.
Yeah. So Jordan Walker is, like post hype. I think he's similar to some of the things the White Sox have done. But you'd have to. I don't know why they would trade him for Benintendi.
Yeah, it's too much money to take on unless the White Sox ate a bunch of that salary. And then you don't want to play him in the outfield. So I mean, then you have to find an outfielder.
Yeah. Now, would I be like? I'd trade a young pitcher potentially for like. I'd trade Sean Burke and something for Jordan Walker, maybe, or a Jordan Walker type guy, right? That it's just another one of these post hype guys that you have playing time for, right? That somebody else doesn't. Like, yeah, there's another mention of Tristan Cassis here. Right. I mean, like guys like that, like would not surprise me at all for this like current White Sox team because it's just you have playing time when other places don't potentially.
Yeah, trying to find that lightning in a bottle,
Yeah, I mean, like Jeff brought it up too. I mean, like I don't know what Curtis Mead is and like Everson Pereira, but I don't mind taking a look at guys like that. I have not heard more about O'Hearn. They talked to his agent. I mean, I think it's just kind of a matter of, like what kind of offers does he have elsewhere? I think he's probably very comfortable with Ryan Fuller and this staff, but it doesn't mean he's gonna like take a 1-year deal to come here if somebody else is offering him more. So winter meetings next week. I don't know how hot and heavy it'll be. The next time we do this, I mean, next Sunday night, I think the meetings are going.
Yep.
But if that's the first night, I don't know how much news we'll have. But that'll be next week's show. Hopefully, we can get somebody live. Maybe I don't know if Elijah's there or not. I'll get more information on that and see if we can get a guest next week too.
Yeah. Grimtall brought up something interesting that I hadn't seen, but he said, should I put any stock into the official Sox site listing Cannon as a relief pitcher?
It is interesting. I didn't think they listed anybody as pitcher. I just thought it was like pitchers on the 40-man.
Yeah, I don't know. That's it. I mean, if that's I haven't looked at the roster, but I mean, if that's the case, that is interesting.
I just don't know that he's. I don't know. I don't really love him as a bullpen guy.
I don't either.
I mean, obviously, like we don't really love him as a starter either. But like he's he's a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, he is a by all everybody that I've heard says he's a super awesome guy. I just haven't, I'm not sure what he is. I don't think he's anything more than a number 5.
Yeah,
personally.
no, agreed. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm curious to see how many like free agent deals or trades we get in anticipation of the winter meetings, right? I mean, you'd like for this thing to get pretty hot and heavy here. I mean, usually once Boris signs a client, he quickly like signs his other ones. But I mean, maybe Cease was just got the offer he wanted and took it, where a lot of these other guys are just more comfortable waiting.
So, Jamie, to answer your question, says, did you find any interesting names for Rule 5?
Yeah, so I'm actually writing a preview currently that should be out in a couple of days. I'm putting only pitchers in there, Ian. I'm not even putting position players
I don't
because
blame you.
I
Yeah.
don't think they're gonna. I mean, there's like a couple of interesting guys like Harrison Cohen, it's a former undrafted free agent from the Mets. Zach McCambley is relief only from Miami. He was really really good last year, but I mean, it's not that different than Peyton Pallette, who you didn't protect. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah, it's a little bit interesting. I mean, there are some interesting guys who are super high upside that are hurt if they decided to go that route. Um, so yeah, I'll have a whole bunch of different names in there, and hopefully they take one of the names that I put in there just for selfish reasons. But yeah, I would imagine they'll make a pick because they have the second pick, but it's a little bit early to know.
Yeah, I would think it would be pitching as well. I think that if anything, as far as position player goes, is that maybe you see something like a Gage Workman where somebody else tries to pass him through waivers uh, when they decide to not keep him on the 26, and maybe the White Sox grab him. I don't know. There might be somebody that they find intriguing in that particular way, but I don't foresee them, especially with the second pick. I don't see them going position player unless there's somebody that they're just over the moon with.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember like Will Bednar. So he was like awesome at Mississippi State. He throws really, really hard. He has not been good. He was a first round pick of the Giants in like 21, I think, when Bannister was there. And he's basically relief only now. It's like 90 Ks and like 60 innings or something, but like walks over
80
five.
walks.
Yeah, he like walks over 5 per 9.
Yeah.
So who knows, right? But there is like a Bannister Giants connection. Not typically the type of guy that he goes for, right? But it's like, oh, I remember that name. Oh, I remember that name too. And then you start looking at numbers, and it's just always command issues, always, every time. Like that's the reason why they've failed to this point.
Yeah, we've seen that one a couple 2-3 times around here.
Yes, yes, we have.
You ready for me to walk this thing out here?
Yeah. Oh, let me. Yeah. Unless we want to do this. So somebody asked me about Lane Kiffin earlier. Look, like
Ugh, yeah.
Lane Kiffin is Looney Tunes. But he's an awesome football coach. And I think LSU, like the facilities are better than Ole Miss. Like I don't think coaches of that stature can turn down LSU because unless your name is Brian Kelly, when you take the LSU job, you win national titles. So none of this surprises me. The way that college sports is right now, it's just at a terrible time. Like leaving your current school sucks, but it's kind of just goes with the territory. And getting paid $90 million to live in Baton Rouge would be fun.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So I'm going to walk us out. You have been watching / listening to the Future Sox podcast, part of the Just Baseball Media Network. If you are listening to this in podcast form, know that you can find us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube and the Purple app. You can also find this podcast along with all of our written content at FutureSox.net. If you are looking for White Sox prospect highlights, you can find them on X at FutureSox and now also here on our YouTube channel. If you love the content and want to support us here at FutureSox, there's a link to our Patreon in our channel description and at FutureSox.net. You can also toss up a super chat on our YouTube stream. Also, don't forget to like this stream and subscribe with notifications so you know when we're going live while helping us in the World Wide Web algorithms. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox, and he is James Fox at JamesFox917. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for listening and commenting in the chat. You guys drive the community. We appreciate it. Thanks to our guest, Geoff Pontes from Baseball America. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. We will talk to you guys soon. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Winter meetings.